Hi everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for another Royal News video. So, I do not think that when Meghan on the 1st of January released that video of her skipping carefree down the beach, dressed all in white like a 90s circa Calvin Klein ad, as she wrote 2025 into the sand, had estimated how badly her year was going to go just merely by the 17th of January. Every year, round about November, December time, we're told every single year, this year is a new Meghan. She's obviously reinvented herself as this with love Meghan. She's super sweet, super kind, entertaining friends. She's a loving wife and mother. Everybody adores her. She's practically saintly, and it's just gone pretty much downhill from there. Obviously, as you guys know, she got absolutely trashed, as did Harry, for climbing over the ruins of people's properties when residents were not yet allowed into the areas themselves. Then Meghan's trailer, obviously that got completely panned. I think she's won a world record for the most dislikes on a trailer for a TV series on Netflix. So of course, the big news that has come out, which Meghan, I'm sure, is incredibly distressed about. We're receiving reports now. I say receiving, I'm not receiving reports, but the news are reporting that Meghan is heartbroken. Meghan is distressed. Meghan is upset because people have called her out for being a bully yet again. Now, this particular publication is another US publication. It's fairly well respected because it's Vanity Fair. Vanity Fair seldom give covers on the front of their magazine to people that they're just about to trash and destroy. So the main outtakes from this article, the big 8,000 word, I call it more of an expose at this point, involve Meghan shopping around for a divorce book deal, basically getting members of her staff to contact publishing houses to find out what she would get to write a post-Harry divorce book. Then we've got the typical poor Harry. This is another thing which irritates many of us, where Harry is painted as naive. He's a bit Tim Nice but dim, and he's obviously had the wool pulled over his eyes by his wife, who he clearly adored and followed around like a puppy dog. But Harry is just as guilty, if not more, for some of the most horrific attacks against his family, all for the 30 pieces of silver. So again, you are beginning to see this almost a post-divorce, what it will mean for Harry and Meghan, and you can already see that newspapers and media outlets will always favour Harry slightly because they will always give him a free pass. I don't think I'll be doing that anytime soon. Now, while some have viewed this article as a flattering one of Harry and Meghan, I think it's a masterpiece of a takedown in disguise. Yes, they include fluffy stories about Harry and Meghan and have rehashed some of the narratives that the couple have pushed out there themselves. But it serves as a reminder of all of the BS, all of the bullshit, let's say the word, all of the bullshit that Harry and Meghan have put out there. By including some of the sickly sweet butter wouldn't melt in their mouth narratives, it gives the impression of this article being balanced and fair. To some. It also gives the article a chance of a wider reach. A perfect example of where this article is damning rather than flattering is where they point out that Harry is okay for Meghan to take the lead, which is obvious to most of us. But when they include a quote from one former employee that says, "I can picture him meeting Meghan and being just a deep breath of, I've been so exhausted and you make everything just so easy." I don't want to be like, oh, it's an Oedipus thing or whatever they said, but it feels like she's reparenting him in a way. So for those of you that don't know, the Oedipus complex is where a child has an unnatural sexual attraction for their opposite-sexed parent and generally has hostility and anger towards the same-sexed parent. It was coined by Sigmund Freud, who I think would have enjoyed having Harry on his couch, because as we know, Harry has pushed for people to see Meghan as the reincarnation of his mother. Meghan has dressed like her herself, has worn Diana's perfume. We know that she's done lots of things to get herself compared to Diana, and Harry seems to very much like the comparisons of his wife being like his his mother. And then further down in the article, you have another employee say they're so hot for each other. Like, you know, when you meet those couples where you're like, the way they're looking at each other, I should probably not be in the room right now. I'm sorry, that does nothing but give me the ick. So what do you think the reader is really going to take away from those two revelations in the same article? I'd imagine you're all like me, and it also gives you that uncomfortable ick. It highlights the fact that their relationship is clearly, I would say, a codependent and unhealthy. I'd even throw in there unstable one. Now, of course, the biggest thing that you can take away from this is the vindication of palace staff for the fact that Meghan is a very, very, very nasty person to work for. So now you have had the Daily Beast, the Hollywood Reporter, and Vanity Fair that have spoken to multiple people, which they are respected publications. They are not going to be putting out statements or exposés on the couple where they've spoken to people if they do not think that they can legally cover their asses. Harry and Meghan are so litigious over the most ridiculous things that they're not going to risk their magazines or their newspapers' reputations by being pulled through the courts. So, of course, with those three publications, again, talking about the fact that she is truly a very, very nasty person to work for, this has obviously opened the floodgates. Now, I'm beginning to think the floodgates have opened with lots of staff speaking, as I said, to those three magazines so quickly. NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, are normally signed, and lots of people have said that Harry and Meghan are very, very tight with their NDAs. You know, Meghan's the only one allowed a voice, everyone else must be silenced, but she's obviously used it as a way to control and bully her staff. Well, that in itself makes NDAs null and void, but it's the fact that it seems funny, isn't it? 5 years exactly, and everybody is now singing like a canary. Now, one thing that amused me when this article came out, the Sussex squad actually thought it was complimentary at first, and they were all sharing it and praising it. Then someone tooted the trumpet, and then it went out. You saw all the announcements going around, and people were saying, no, you shouldn't be promoting this. It's awful. They've attacked Meghan, blah, blah, blah. That's what piqued my interest in the article, because to be honest with you, I saw their faces, I saw Vanity Fair, and I thought, oh gosh, not another paid for piece, another thing praising the couple. We're over this. I don't want to read that crap anymore. I don't even want to click on it. But then when I saw the Sussex squad all berating each other because they were sharing something that wasn't so complimentary, I was like, ooh, I might have to give this a read. And I have to say, I think that some of the sarcasm that's in this was lost on people. I do believe that the author, Anna Pill, was very clever in the way that she's written this article, and it reminds me very much of Alison P. Davis, who wrote The Cut, because what she's done is she has put in lots of statements and complimentary things about the couple that other people have said, and some of the things that Harry and Meghan swear by. But for every positive, the negative that she's put in there trumps it by miles. Everybody knows that Harry and Meghan's friends and associates and people that speak out and defend them, and they all tend to read from the same script. You have a lot of Harry and Meghan just show up. Meghan is the kindest, sweetest, most loveliest friend. Harry and Meghan walk on water. I practically saw them in Los Angeles breaking bread and feeding the masses. This is the ridiculousness of how people talk about them. Lainey Gossip, she actually said at one point in this article, they bless you with their royalness. That's the gift. It's not like Princess Diana was ever best friends with all of the people she visited in hospital. They bless you with their royalness. Oh, I'm sure the world is so blessed that Meghan and Harry spend their time blessing everybody. But again, that's the sort of sickly sweet stuff that it's so ridiculous when you read. It doesn't matter how many positives have been put into this article because the negatives outweigh it by far. So other bits that came out in this article, there's so many little hit jobs in here that covers a variety of subjects. Let's talk about Spotify. A former employee that worked with Meghan said, I thought that I had the role of a lifetime. They were a fan of the couple and said, I thought I was going to be besties with Harry and Meghan and we were going to run around the world saving people. Clearly, many people drank the Kool-Aid. And as we know, Archetypes was a complete and utter flop. But it wasn't the only ideas they came up with. So desperate to try and get Harry to do a podcast, they came up with an idea, which was pitched, of Harry trying a different hot chocolate every week and speaking to a friend or a celebrity as they come on. So they sit there and have a chat, and Harry, samples hot chocolate. This is how desperate they were to try and get something out of the couple. That was obviously poo-pooed. But this is one of Harry's ideas, and this makes me think to Bill Simmons, I think it was, who said, I will tell you one time when I'm drunk, maybe, of a story of when Harry called me and pitched an idea because it was so ridiculous. I think it might be this one. Harry wanted to interview Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump and Mark Zuckerberg to do with their childhood traumas. Now, this news already came out, last year, I think it was. But the reason being was it's because he wanted to interview them to try and understand why they had childhood traumas. They turned out to be sociopaths, right? He wanted to do a sociopath podcast, but he didn't understand whilst his trauma that happened to him with his mother being essentially murdered, he didn't turn into a sociopath. Harry's interest in sociopaths, he wouldn't have had to try and get those people booked, which obviously never would have done it in the first place. He merely only had to walk into the marital bedroom because I tell you what, buddy, you married one. I mean, that's absolute insanity. He thought that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are going to sit down with him, Mark Zuckerberg, talk about their childhood traumas and also the fact, why are you a sociopath then? One employee who went into meetings to try and gear Harry up to choose things to do to actually, get it together for the Spotify contract, turned around and said, I felt like he kind of didn't want to be there doing that at this time. My expectations was he'd be charming, and it's clear he wasn't that person, at least on that day. Harry's attitude was either, well, why should I do this? Or why are we doing this? And they said that, well, because Spotify are paying you millions, we've got to do something. And Harry was obviously very dismissive, and he sounds again what we've seen at the New York Deal Book Summit. He seems very arrogant, very rude, expects everybody to go around brushing his teeth and tying his shoelaces for him. Harry comes across as incredibly lazy. I can't imagine how much pressure they were under at Spotify to try and get these two lazy people to produce something, anything, when you think how easy it is to record a podcast. You literally just start talking. It would have been that simple. But after a couple of years, obviously people were beginning to panic because they upset so many people by giving them so much money, and they produced again absolutely nothing. Spotify did everything for them. They wrapped it up in a big bow for Meghan, even doing some of the interviewing, building them a studio. Even the idea, the concept for archetypes wasn't even Meghan's. It was Rebecca Sananez, who was the head of Archwell Audio, who quit not long after. Meghan watered down the original concept so much that it completely distorted what it was meant to be about. And obviously, Rebecca, who came up with this great idea, Meghan was like, oh, I'll take that, but I'm going to change everything about it. I've stolen your concept and now completely destroyed it. You can understand why she quit. And she was so outraged that she actually did a TikTok ranting about it. But this is where it gets really damning in the article for Meghan, because it is centred around how horrific she is to work for. She was warm and effusive at the beginning, one employee said, an atmosphere of professional camaraderie. But when things went wrong, normally before they changed something, she would become cold and withholding towards whoever it was that she blamed. The source said she was really, really, really awful, very painful. And when you fall out of her favour, you are the one to be thrown to the wolves at any given moment. She would undermine them, talk behind their back, basically humiliating them. They said she was like Mean Girls. That's how Meghan treats people, and it echoes a lot of the royal palace staff that were accused of being liars. It was a smear campaign against Meghan to silence her. These are people that worked with them at Archwell and Spotify and Gimlet Studios that were called in to help Meghan get archetypes off of the ground. But I remember the accusations, and Camilla Tominey, she is the royal editor at the Telegraph, she brought up the fact that she reported many years ago and she was attacked for it. Her family were threatened, she had death threats, and this is obviously Harry and Meghan's fan base as they preach about kindness on the internet. But she did a story where she said that she spoke to one employee who said Meghan uses a whisper as a shout. So when Harry is in the room, he just hears her talking normally, so he doesn't understand why people describe her as aggressive. She'd throw around phrases like lack of accountability, disappointment, or we know what you did, and yet we still decided to support you. But then when the staff asked, what is it that I've done? They wouldn't get an explanation, and Meghan would simply say, I think it's best that we keep it to ourselves and not advertise it in front of the team. We're here to protect you, not throw you under a bus. That is mental torture. That is manipulation. That is gaslighting. The intimidation that she inflicted on her staff resulted in members of her staff, people that didn't work directly for her Archwell Gimlet Studios, ending up in long-term therapy. One employee admits to Vanity Fair that when the stories first came out, they didn't believe that Meghan was capable of bullying Palisades and couldn't believe that she'd ever do that. But after they spent time working with her, they said, oh, on any given Tuesday, that happened. They said you can be yelled at even if somebody doesn't raise their voice. Oh yes, we have seen that from Meghan countless times. You've only got to look at Meghan's evil glare to know that she's really not a nice person underneath the facade of that big, lovely grin and those big Bambi eyelashes fluttering at people. Two further sources said one person who worked at Archetypes took a leave of absence after just 3 episodes of working with her. Then they quit Gimlet Studios altogether. Several others took extended breaks to escape scrutiny, exiting their jobs and undergoing long-term therapy. This is not the actions of just a demanding boss, a boss that wants you to work to deadlines, someone that maybe goes a bit overboard with the criticism. I mean, we've all had people like that, I'm sure, over the years. I know I have, working in offices. What Meghan is doing to people, leaving them sobbing and crying and quitting their jobs. These are top executives, some of them, that have worked in the political fields, that have worked for famous people. The fact that they are ending up and admitting that they ended up in long-term therapy shows that she really is more than just that. She seems to be an evil person to work for. And this does tie in with Meghan being a narcissist. And let's be honest, there are signs there of a little bit of sociopathy. As I said, if Harry wanted to do a sociopath podcast, he need not have looked too far from home. And this is the thing, Harry pushes better up, mental well-being in a workplace, and yet his employees, his staff, he has allowed his wife to bully them in such a way that they've ended up in therapy. This is truly unbelievable, and it's damning for both of them. Harry, by not doing anything and allowing this to happen, allowing Meghan to treat people in such a way, it's that whole thing, if you're complacent, you're complicit. He's bullying them himself. But it's the way people write. Harry was just too dim to notice. Harry just doesn't realise. I'm not falling for that. People need to stop giving him a free pass. Now, whilst Anna Peel does put in, as I said, some gushing things in there from other people and members of staff that still praise Meghan in that way that she walks on water that we saw in the clapback Us Weekly. They did that really gushing one where Meghan got 5 employees. It's that number 5, isn't it? It's like the 5 friends that praised her and trashed Thomas Markle. But as I said, for every gushing post that we read in there, it's borderline, if not completely sycophancy. It's so sugary sweet. It's just not believable. And then you hear these reports and it makes you realise she really and Harry are not pleasant people. And this is why they have lost so many staff. As I said, these are top executives that we know about, let alone all of the underlings and all of the assistants of all of these people that have no doubt quit as well, that don't make it into the headlines. Harry is, of course, made out to be that he's got no self-awareness. He was so dim, he didn't understand why trashing his family in Spare has caused so much backlash and anger from them, and why none of them wish to talk to him anymore. But the fact that Harry doesn't understand doing all of the things that he did in Netflix and Spare affair. He doesn't realise that it would have hurt his family. Please. Some people say that Harry looked upset when Meghan did this. I don't think he did. I think that he enjoyed it. He was smirking. That is not a face of a man that was horrified or upset that she was doing it. That is a man that enjoyed it, because I think he enjoys some of the cruelty that Meghan helped inflict on his family, because for whatever reason he feels that he is wronged. He's trapped in this victim mentality that Meghan has nurtured, and Harry believes that he's the victim of the British press, the British public. He's the victim of his family, and I'm sorry, that is just not the truth. Meghan believes she's a victim, and they have even put this in the magazine, a folie à deux, which translates as the madness of two. These two share in their own delusions. That's basically what it means. It means that these two feed each other. They almost, the fantasies that they create. We've seen this with Harry. He's completely rewritten his entire childhood and how he grew up, because he shares in the madness with his victim mentality wife. Again, like I said, there might be some lovely compliments in this article towards Harry and Meghan. There might be some sweet nothings from friends and colleagues that know them. But by putting things like that in there, that is the most damning thing. And that's the thing that jumps out at the reader the most. One employee turned around and said, "You don't tell them no. I left because I couldn't live with myself anymore." Then you've got the fact that Harry and Meghan, their Montecito neighbours, are definitely pissy with them. One neighbour described them as local villains. The Prince and the Starlet is the nickname that they've got. They are irritated that she's tried to monetize Montecito by calling her business venture American Riviera Orchard, with its almost royal crest. It's such a kind of hucksterism. It's finding every way she can to monetize something. I still think that they're the most entitled, disingenuous people on the planet. They moved away from England to get away from the scrutiny of the press, and all they do is try and get into the press in the United States. So as I said in the beginning of the video, one of the other big bombs is the fact that Meghan has been shopping around for a post-divorce deal with a divorce book, basically. Meghan and Harry's team have come out defending, saying that's simply not true. If anything would have happened, Meghan would have been approached, not the other way around, given the fact that Meghan approached Oprah, all of the networking that she did at the royal wedding. She used her wedding to network with Hollywood, really, to get future deals. They'd already started recording stuff in preparation of Megxit before the wedding. So do you think that Meghan won't be prepping for a divorce? Really? Of course she has. She started writing that book the moment she got past that first holiday in Africa. As Meghan was doing yoga, being serenaded by the painted birds in Botswana, Harry was sitting there adoringly looking at her whilst he was playing the guitar. Meghan in her brain was going, ka-ching! Nobody can convince me otherwise. That divorce will happen. She's just got to line up her ducks. But things like this and exposés coming out, it's making it harder and harder for her to line up her ducks. So in a way, she's going to be stuck being with him, because she can't really get away from it, because otherwise without Harry she really will go into oblivion quicker than you can bat an eyelid. Karma is that she can't actually get rid of him, because she's being trashed so badly that if she then goes on her own and it's proved the fact that she did use him, she's going to be even more destroyed publicly. She's made her bed, she's got to lie in it, and well, she's just got to look at that face for many, many more years. I find that the best karma that she could have. In fact, I find it the best karma that both of these two could genuinely have. The fact that they have done everything to trash and hurt everybody around them, and now that they can be stuck together for as long as possible because they don't want the "we told you so" stories to come out. And yeah, may they stay happily married in wedded miserable matrimony for the rest of their lives. Honestly, this made my day. I was lying there in bed and I saw this, as I said, it was only when the Sussex squad started saying, don't share it, I was like, ooh, this is worth a read. And I highly recommend you do read it, but read between the lines. Anna Peel has written this article brilliantly. As I said, it's very similar to the Alison P. Davis. Yes, there is some sweet stuff in there that's been peppered in, but mostly the negatives in there, that's the real bit that draws the reader in. That's the most damaging and damning article from one of the most respected fashion magazines I think I've ever read. And the fact that they gave him the main front spread to do that shows that Vanity Fair really mean it. And then it makes me think back to Meghan. I've said it so many times, she needs to be careful who she steps on the way up. Meghan, if you remember, upset Vanity Fair when she called them all racist because they ran this cover of her wild about Harry, and it was to do with a Judy Garland film which involved a song in it where some people had blackface. So it had racist undertones to it. So that would have pissed off all of the editors and the people that worked on that interview. Meghan also said that they deliberately only focused on her relationship with Harry and not her philanthropy. But as I said before, Meghan's philanthropy catalogue was possibly one page, and that was a new career choice for her after she decided to go after a certain prince. So I can imagine that Vanity Fair didn't forget the fact that she tried to call their publication racist. So yeah, be careful out there, folks. Be nice to everybody because you never know who's going to be ready and waiting to stick the boot in on your epic fall from grace. So guys, that's it for me on this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be back with you soon. Take care for now.